So let's talk about favorites. It's an idea. You take all of the pieces you've consumed of a certain medium, and you choose one that you like the most. But it doesn't stop there. Once you pick your favorite, it doesn't seem to be enough to just have a favorite. You need to justify it, tell everyone, conform your beliefs around this favorite. As Neurolaunch puts it, once we've established a favorite, confirmation bias kicks in. We start to notice and remember information that confirms our preference, while potentially overlooking contradictory evidence. It isn't just a superficial thought, it becomes a core value. From a young age, we are asked our favorite color, shape, shirt. A young kid on my swim team once gave me his ranking of his favorite siblings. The idea of favorites is slightly illogical, as it traps us in time. It's also inherently childish. That being said, let me tell you about my favorite video game. Driver San Francisco is a game you can't play anymore. Made by Ubisoft Reflections in 2011, it was the 5th installment in the infamous Driver series, a game modeled after famous car chases. Think Dukes of Hazzard or Starsky and Hutch. The series was developed to give gamers control over the epic car action movies they loved. Previous entries saw the protagonist, police officer John Tanner, investigate crimes, take down criminal overlords, all while maintaining this epic car stunt underline. The games were inherently very cinematic, giving you control over some incredible visuals. Recent installments of the series allowed you to leave the car during missions, which expanded capabilities. It wasn't just a driving game anymore, it was a semi-open world shoot-'em-up. Sure, you played as a cop, but the game gave you freedom to shoot whoever you liked. That was a major problem. For one, this was a driving series. The developers were having difficulties getting the on-foot sections right. Secondly, once Tanner left the car, the series began to butt up against a much more powerful rival, Grand Theft Auto. It was clear that everything Driver was trying to do here by increasing player freedom, it was already done better by GTA. So they were faced with a problem. Driver had an identity, but developers wanted to push further. One of the main advantages of Tanner getting out of the car was his ability to hop into any car you saw along the way. The ability to swap cars whenever you wanted added exponential possibilities to gameplay and variety. So, the developers had a tough decision. They could continue this new direction and take on one of the greatest video game franchises of all time, or they could find a new way to innovate. It took them 5 years of building, but they chose that second option. The result is one of the greatest gaming mechanics of all time. See, their solution is really mind-blowing. Tanner doesn't leave the car during the game, at least during the parts you can control him. But he still can drive any car he wishes. The game gives Tanner and the player the ability to leave his body and shift into the driver's seat of any car in San Francisco. That's right, this buddy cop car stunt series has just introduced superpowers. These powers are fully canon to the story as well. Tanner and his partner Jones are both aware of and bewildered by Tanner's abilities, and use them to advance the story. For instance, if the pair is chasing after a crook, you can shift into a car in oncoming traffic and stop the perpetrator in his tracks. This added mechanic makes the gameplay one of the most unique things I've ever experienced. But there's a twist. All of this, the abilities, San Francisco, the plot to detonate a WMD, it's all inside Tanner's head. For the majority of the game, he's really lying in a hospital bed, comatose. The major events of the game are his brain's interpretation of the news coming out of a TV in his hospital room. Throughout the game, the player knows Tanner is imagining it all, and watches as he slowly realizes. That's probably the biggest problem I have with the game. The player is immediately shown the hospital room, and in the dream, a giant billboard speaks directly to Tanner. I would make the argument that without these two scenes, a slow reveal would be all the more rewarding for the player. Moments like the EKG beeping, or Jones's voice over the radio, would be all the more mysterious. Needless to say, the plot and the gameplay still beautifully interweave, making an experience like no other game I've ever played. At the beginning, I said you can't play this game anymore. And that's mostly true. In 2016, the game was pulled from all online storefronts. I'm not going to get into the reason why, but this means that the game was only available for sale for about 5 years, the amount of time it actually took to make. Now you can only play the game if you buy a used disc or pirate the version online. I tried both. Guess which one gave me a virus? Back to the game. It's really funny actually. I would say that it is my favorite game, but there's probably nobody on earth, including myself, that would say it's the best game. I mean, all things considered, it might not even be called good. Does it have the best story? No. Gameplay? Maybe. Graphics? Definitely not. It scored an 80 out of 100 on Metacritic, a solid B-. So that begs the question, what makes a good game? And why is this seemingly mediocre game still my favorite? Probably the greatest game I've ever played is Red Dead Redemption 2. It has 10 out of 10 scores in nearly every aspect, and it may be the greatest game ever made. But it's not my favorite. I mean, if your favorite was objectively the best game of all time, everybody's favorite would be Red Dead, Half-Life, or Zelda. But the idea of your favorite and the best are two disconnected ideas. My argument is perspective. The experience and history behind your consumption is what decides that. Let me tell you a story. When I was maybe 7 or 8, my dad sat me down on the living room floor and played me a CD. The album was Testify by Phil Collins. I remember vividly the opening lyrics to Wake Up Call, the vivid imagery of a man shook awake by the narrator. To this day, Phil Collins is my favorite artist. I know the lyrics to almost all of his songs. My favorite band is his jazz fusion group from the 70s, of which I own every single vinyl, and has only 40,000 monthly listeners on Spotify. Just for reference, my YouTube channel gets 140 views in the same time period. All this is to say is a favorite is never objectively the best. To me, a favorite marks an important period in history, something very good combined with a period in your life that was even better. Once you pick your favorite, it becomes progressively harder to change it though. Let's talk about what I think of when I think of Driver San Francisco. I think of Thanksgiving in 2020. I was in South Carolina. I remember the movie I watched earlier that day, and I remember the show that was going live on Disney Plus at the time. I remember the video I posted that break, and the fact that one of my favorite YouTubers had just commented on it. Most importantly, I remember hiding in the bathroom during dinner and watching a YouTube video. It was a video on Driver San Francisco, the amazing transformative game from 2011 that you couldn't play anymore. From that point on, I knew I had to play this game. It wasn't until fall of 2024 when I finally had a job that paid enough for me to snag a copy on the aftermarket. I've played the game twice since then, and it's overly clear to me that this isn't a perfect game. There's a persistent yellow filter over the screen, and digital bloom severe enough to blind you, a factor in another one of my favorite games. The dialogue is corny, derivative, and at times a little misogynistic, but there is just as many things I could say to defend it. One of my favorite things in video games are mechanics that evolve throughout the game. A new level will ask you to do something that completely flips the gameplay on its head. A great example of this is the game Battlefield Bad Company 2. In one level, the player is asked to snipe enemies across the map in time with the thunder to avoid detection. Next, you travel through snowy mountains with only a certain amount of time between houses, the fireplaces inside stopping you from freezing to death. In Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare, there's an iconic level called All Gillied Up. The series was previously a hardcore World War II military shooter. Waves of enemies were thrown at you through the trenches directed towards the end of your barrel. But now, in Modern Warfare, you have many more tools at your disposal. You have to go prone, use modern equipment, sneak through enemy lines, and minimize your kills. Titanfall 2 is another great example. The movement system in that game is second to none, and levels see you traveling through time to avoid barriers, controlling giant robots, and fighting across the top of moving spaceships, just to name a few. Needless to say, Driver SF has this in spades. The game plays with both Tanner's abilities and the underlying motif of his coma. On any given mission, John may have to shift across the entire Bay Area to return stolen cars, or follow an ambulance just to keep himself from going into cardiac arrest. In order to take down Jericho, the major antagonist for the game, Tanner shifts into the body of a lower level thug and slowly works his way up the ranks. Tanner uses his abilities to shift into a hostage's body to determine their position. He shifts into passengers in cars to learn valuable information, and he even uses larger vehicles like buses to block the path of his pursuers. The game is constantly evolving in the scope of your abilities, until it's finally revealed that Jericho can shift too. That's right, the major antagonist of the game has the same abilities you do. Suddenly, you no longer have the upper hand. This culminates in what I believe is the greatest video game level I've ever played. The target starts like any other mission. Tanner takes over his man on the inside for another mission. He's supposed to be taking out a person of interest who has been tailing Jericho. You creep closer and closer, then realize the target is you. What follows is an amazing car chase in which you control the car in front, from the perspective of the car behind you. The car you see out of is operated by the game, and only follows you automatically as you move Tanner's Dodge. This is a strange out-of-body experience that can only be described as a second-person game. Hopefully this demonstration shows you just how groundbreaking this game was for 2011, managing to innovate on the medium of video games as a whole. Said and done, Driver SF is groundbreaking in many ways, and lacking in many more. Like any work of art, it's beautifully imperfect. The favoritism I have isn't only due to its quality, but the emotional memories carried at the core of my personal experience. All of this is to say that there's many things that can make a game good. It takes a special amount of circumstances for a game to become beloved. In order to become a favorite, a piece of media will usually require a set of circumstances outside of the control of the original creator. A favorite is seemingly a useless idea, a core belief that actively holds us back from growing or improving our taste. But in concept, you can see something inherently human. Small illogicalities or inconsistencies that make us less than optimal as a species, but give us character. And that's what art is in the first place, a medium of mediums to help us feel something, regardless of utility. And when you put it like that, having a favorite is one of the most beautiful things we can do.